Today, we will cover the series, That Time I Got Reincarnated as a Slime. Let's begin. In modern-day Tokyo, a 37-year-old salaryman called Satoru lives an ordinary life. He is mostly satisfied even though he has never had a girlfriend. Satoru meets up with his work colleague called Tamura and his girlfriend. While they're walking around, a hooded man suddenly appears and targets Tamura. Protecting Tamura, Satoru pushes him out of the way but gets stabbed himself. While he is bleeding out on the floor, he hears a voice announcing that he's getting various skills just like in a video game. In accordance with Satoru wanting to stop feeling the pain from his stab wound and his body turning cold, the voice tells him he has acquired resistances against heat, cold, temperature changes, electricity, paralysis, stabbing and physical attacks together with pain nullification and a body that doesn't require blood. Before he dies, Satoru tells Tamura to be happy with his girlfriend. He regrets dying a virgin and wants to become a womanizer if he is reborn. After the voice says that he has acquired a unique skill called Predator and the Great Sage skill, Satoru loses consciousness. When he wakes up, he feels like he's in a void. He can remember his past life, but realizes he can't see anything, can't talk, and doesn't feel his arms or legs. However, he can move and feel rocks and plants around him. Touching one of the plants, he instantly absorbs it and realizes he was reborn as a slime, one of the weakest video game monsters. Even though he doesn't need to eat or sleep, he keeps absorbing plants because he doesn't have anything else to do. He finds out that his Great Sage skill enables him to talk to a voice that can answer all his questions. When he asks where the plants he ate went, the voice explains that he has a unique skill called Predator. That skill enables him to store beings and objects in his stomach, analyze them, and then acquire their skills. He can also transform into that object whenever he wants. Giving his skill a try, he analyzes the plants he ate and finds out that they are medicinal hypocute herbs that only grow in areas rich in magic tools, a material that makes up all magical beings. Because he has nothing else to do, Satoru decides to gather all the hypocute herbs in the cave and make lots of healing potions inside of his body. Afterwards, he starts gathering valuable magic ore, but he doesn't look where he's going and falls down a flight of strange stairs. Even though he doesn't feel pain, he finds out he can take damage. Luckily, he has the self-regeneration skill that quickly heals him. Suddenly, Satoru hears a deep voice talking to him in his head. Realizing Satoru can't see him, the voice's owner offers to give him the gift of sight if Satoru promises that he won't get scared of him and run away. The mysterious person has been sealed in the cave for 300 years, and he has been bored the whole time, wanting someone to talk to. Talking to him using his thoughts, Satoru agrees to the conditions, and the voice teaches him how to feel the magicules around him, helping him acquire a skill called Magic Sense. Using his new gift of sight, Satoru looks at the owner of the mysterious voice and realizes he's a gigantic, scary dragon. The dragon introduces himself as Veldora the Storm Dragon, one of the only 4 true dragons in this world. Veldora tells him slimes usually don't have the ability to think, which makes Satoru something cowardly unique, a being with extraordinary abilities. Veldora also tells him that people from other worlds sometimes visit, but that he's the first known person who has been reincarnated into this world from another one. When otherworlders visit this world, they also always gain special abilities. 300 years ago, Veldora destroyed a whole town by mistake. A powerful female hero then defeated him and used a skill called Ultimate Imprisonment to seal him inside a cave. The hero also called herself a summon, which means she has been summoned from another world by mages and used as a powerful weapon who can't defy their summoner. Hearing his story, Satoru asks Veldora if he wants to become his friend. Veldora has too much pride to accept directly, but Satoru manages to convince him, saying he'll never return to the cave if he doesn't become his friend. Since Veldora is his friend now, Satoru wants to help free him from the cave. Using his Great Sage skill, he figures out they could remove his prison if they first analyze it from both the inside and the outside. Before they start, Veldora wants to give Satoru a name, since he doesn't have one in this world. He gives him the name Rimuru and explains that he gave him his protection by naming him. Veldora then tells Rimuru to make up a kind of family name for the two of them that will signify that they are equals. Rimuru comes up with the name Tempest, making them Veldora Tempest and Rimuru Tempest from then on. As soon as Veldora spoke the name Rimuru Tempest, Rimuru feels like that name became engraved upon his soul. The same happens to Veldora when Rimuru speaks his new name. Veldora lets Rimuru absorb him together with the ultimate imprisonment so they can both start analyzing it in order to break it someday. In the Great Forest of Jura, where Rimuru's cave is located, there are several countries. In the Kingdom of Blumen, a minister called Veryard and a guildmaster called Fuse are troubled because Veldora disappeared from the cave he was sealed in. They think the other monsters in the forest might unite and attack the humans. There is also the chance that the Eastern Kingdom will try to conquer the provinces surrounding the forest, since they couldn't reach them while Veldora was sealed nearby. Fuse agrees to do Veryard a favor and investigate the forest and the Eastern Kingdom's plans. Back in the cave, Rimuru wanders around for days trying to find an exit. On his way, he acquires different skills, like the ability to swim and launch blades made of water. Encountering different enemies, he defeats them, absorbs them, and gets even more skills. Defeating a bat, he uses its ultrasonic wave skill to give himself the ability to speak. Several weeks later, he finally finds a huge gate. At that moment, the gate opens and a party of adventurers enter the cave. Rimuru hides himself, and while the adventurers go deeper inside, Rimuru escapes outside. While Rimuru is exploring the great forest and enjoying its sights, a group of goblins find him, having sensed an unusually powerful monster. The goblins' leader takes Rimuru to their poor, run-down village and asks him to help them. When the goblins' god disappeared a month before, the monsters in the area have become unusually active and started harassing them. Rimuru realizes the goblins' god was actually Veldora, who has been keeping monsters away from the nearby goblins until he absorbed him. Without Veldora's protection, the direwolves have been attacking the goblins with their overwhelming strength and numbers, causing the deaths of many of them. Their most powerful warrior, who was one of the elder's sons, died too. Seeing the goblins' situation is desperate, Rimuru seriously thinks about helping them. When they bow before him and offer him their loyalty in exchange for his protection, Rimuru realizes he can't decline any more and agrees to become the goblin village's guardian instead of Veldora. Visiting the tent where the wounded goblins are, Rimuru quickly envelops each of them in his body and completely heals them using the healing potions he made previously. After he does that, he tells the goblins they will need to build a fence for protection. That night, the direwolves attack the goblin village led by a wolf with a scar across his eye. The goblins' new fence stops the wolves in their tracks, and Rimuru tries telling them to leave them alone, but they don't listen to him and attack. The goblins, using bows and arrows, bravely protect their village together with traps that Rimuru has set. Underestimating Rimuru, the leader wolf runs towards him to attack him, but gets caught in a sticky thread trap. Rimuru then uses his water blade skill to cut his head off. Seeing this, the other wolves stop their attack. Rimuru announces that he gives them the choice to submit to him or die. When the wolves don't respond, Rimuru decides to absorb their leader's body. Transforming into a wolf, he again gives the wolves the same choice and uses the leader's menace skill to assert his dominance. Hearing his might roar, the whole wolf pack bows to Rimuru, having decided to submit to him. After a night of celebration, Rimuru gathers all the goblins and wolves. He decides to pair them up and make them live and work together so they can become friends more easily. Since monsters don't have names, Rimuru decides to name all the goblins and wolves so he can communicate with them more easily. He is surprised when all of them are unusually happy to hear that. He names the village chief Rigger and his son Rigger, after his older brother. After naming all the goblins, he moves on to the wolves. Even though Rimuru killed their leader, it turns out none of the wolves are holding a grudge against him, not even the leader's son, a wolf with a star-shaped patch of fur on his forehead. He decides to name the wolf leader's son Ranga and even gives him the family name Tempest. However, once he does that, he starts feeling weak. He realizes that giving names to monsters uses up magic energy, and he has to take a rest to recover it. 3 days later, Rimuru finally wakes up and finds that Rigard, the old village chief, suddenly looks incredibly muscular and healthy. Rigard explains that when someone gives it a name, a monster's rank rises and it evolves. All the wolves and goblins in the village evolved in the same way, becoming strong and healthy. The male goblins evolved into hobgoblins and the female goblins into goblinas. Talking to Ranga, Rimuru finds out that all the wolves evolved, even though he only named Ranga, because all dire wolves are united as one. Ranga even renamed the entire clan into the Tempest Wolf clan. Gathering all the goblins and wolves, Rimuru gives them 3 rules he would like them to uphold. They can't attack humans, they can't fight amongst themselves, and they can't belittle other races. Trusting Rimuru's judgment, the goblins and wolves accept his rules. Rimuru appoints Rigger as the goblin lord of the village and gives jobs to all the goblins. He forms a team for protecting the village and a team for gathering food. But he doesn't know how to solve the problem of building new houses and making clothes since the goblins aren't very good at it. On Rigger's suggestion, Rimuru decides to visit the dwarven country of Dworgen and look for skilled dwarves to help them out. Taking a number of goblins and tempest wolves with him, Rimuru departs towards Dworgen. On their way there, they take a break at the Emeld River. Rigger reveals that his late older brother got his name from a passing man called Gelmud, who was an officer in the Demon Lord's army. Rimuru once again asks Ranga if he feels like he wants to avenge his father, but Ranga is loyal to him now because he spared his clan and even gave them names. After 3 days of travel, Rimuru and his party arrive at Dworgen, a large trade city carved in a mountain, where humans, elves, and dwarves live together. Because he doesn't want to attract too much attention, Rimuru only takes Gapta with him, a small goblin who has been to the city before. While Rimuru and Gapta are waiting in line to get in, bandits appear and start bullying them for being weak monsters. Telling Gapta to cover his eyes and ears, Rimuru tells the bandits to go away if they don't want trouble. When the bandits don't listen, Rimuru ends up having to transform into his wolf form and use his menace skill to drive them all away. Unable to contain his power, Rimuru accidentally scares lots of innocent people, too, and attracts the attention of Dworgen's guards. Realizing Rimuru is at fault for the chaos, the guards throw him into the city's dungeon together with Gapta. Talking to Kaido, Dworgen's captain of security, Rimuru manages to convince him he didn't cause the commotion on purpose. Suddenly, a dwarf appears and tells Kaido that a monster is terrorizing the city, but they don't have enough health potions to heal their wounded allies. Getting an idea, Rimuru fills a barrel with healing potion and gives it to Kaido. Kaido takes the barrel and hurries towards the wounded dwarves, telling Rimuru to stay in his cell. When night falls, Kaido returns and tells Rimuru his potions help the dwarves defeat their enemy. As thanks, he releases Rimuru and Gapta and gives them something to eat. Rimuru tells Kaido he needs to find a talented craftsman, and Kaido agrees to help him. The next day, Kaido takes Rimuru to his brother, a talented dwarven blacksmith called Kajin. Kajin would be willing to help Rimuru, but it turns out he has gotten an unreasonably large longsword order from a minister called Vesta, and he doesn't have time for anything else. Rimuru remembers absorbing a lot of magic ore in the cave he woke up in, and he shows it to Kajin, surprising him. In exchange for the ore, Rimuru asks Kajin to find him craftsmen who could come to the goblin village and teach the villagers how to make houses. Surprised Rimuru didn't ask for anything more, Kajin accepts his offer happily. In order to help Kajin even more, he absorbs and analyzes one of his longswords. After that, he uses the magic ore he has already absorbed to produce all the swords Kajin needs in an instant. Overjoyed, Kajin takes Rimuru to a bar with beautiful elven waitresses. Rimuru enjoys the elves' attention, has fun drinking with them and the other dwarves. While all this is happening, Gapta is still sleeping in the dungeon. One of the elf girls offers to tell Rimuru his fortune. Rimuru wants to see the person he is destined to be with, and the elf's crystal ball shows him a black-haired girl who looks Japanese. Suddenly, the minister called Vesta enters the bar. Approaching Kajin arrogantly, he taunts him, thinking he won't be able to finish making all the swords he ordered in time, but gets surprised when Kajin tells him they're already done. When he sees Rimuru, Vesta is disgusted and spills a mug of beer on him while mocking him for being a slime. Rimuru does his best to stay calm, but Kajin gets angry and knocks Vesta out with a punch because he mocked his guest, Rimuru. All of a sudden, Kajin offers to leave Dworgen and go to Rimuru's village himself, and Rimuru is overjoyed. However, he quickly gets arrested for punching a minister and thrown into the dungeon, together with Rimuru and 3 dwarf brothers who were in the bar with them. While they are talking, Kajin explains why Vesta hates him so much. Kajin used to serve Gazel, Dworgen's king, as the captain of one of the Royal Knight Orders, while Vesta served as his assistant. Since Vesta is from a family of royals while Kajin is from a family of peasants, Vesta was jealous of Kajin for being a higher rank than him. One day, a project called the Magisoldier project that Vesta was working on went wrong, and he accused Kajin of it being his fault. Because Vesta had a lot of influence, Kajin was forced to take responsibility and quit the royal guards. Ever since, Vesta continues to hold a grudge against Kajin and does his best to make his life harder. Nevertheless, Kajin doesn't think Vesta is a bad person, since he is passionate about his work. Kajin thinks that if he leaves the country, Vesta might become a better man. This is why he wants to go with Rimuru to his village. The 3 dwarf brothers also want to join him, and Rimuru accepts them. The next morning, Rimuru and the dwarves' trial begins once the king, a large, serious dwarf called Gazel, appears. Since they're not allowed to speak unless the king allows them, Rimuru and the dwarves' defendant talks instead of them. However, he ends up lying about the dwarves storming the bar and assaulting Vesta while he was peacefully drinking there. Kajin realizes Vesta has paid their defendant to accuse them instead of defending them. When Vesta agrees with the defendant's testimony, the judge sentences Kajin to 20 years of forced labor and the other dwarves to 10 years of labor. Surprisingly, Gazel asks Kajin to return to him and serve as his knight again, but Kajin tells him he already promised to serve someone else. The king understands and exiles Kajin and the others, ordering them to leave immediately. While he is leaving, Rimuru notices the king looks sad. Afterwards, Gazel talks to Vesta alone and reveals he knew he lied about Kajin being at fault for the Magisoldier project's failure, but he trusted Vesta and waited for him to admit it. Because he destroyed the dwarves' relationship with Rimuru, who helped them with his incredibly strong healing potions, Gazel fires Vesta as his retainer. Vesta is shocked, but he says nothing to defend himself, realizing he has made a mistake. Ever since he was a boy, he only wanted to be useful to the king, but he chose the wrong path somewhere along the way. With tears in his eyes, he asks the king for forgiveness, but Gazel only thanks him for his service and tells him to never show himself to him again. Later, Gazel orders an assassin to keep his eye on Rimuru because he thinks he is a dangerous monster. Meanwhile, in a guild in the kingdom of Bloomin' Fuse, the guildmaster reports that there is no sign that the Eastern Empire is preparing to attack. In front of him are the three adventurers Rimuru saw at the entrance of the cave before: a fighter called Kavel, a sorcerer girl called Eren, and a thief called Yido. Fuse sent the three of them to check if Veldora is still in the cave, and they confirmed he disappeared. Their next mission will be to investigate around the Great Jura Forest and see what is happening with the monsters there. Outside, while the adventurers are complaining about Fuse overworking them, a masked black-haired girl called Shizu approaches them and asks to accompany them to the forest. Eren immediately accepts and Shizu is grateful. A few weeks after they return to the goblin village, Rimuru shows Ranga a powerful new skill called Black Lightning. As soon as they arrived, Kajin and the other dwarves started teaching the goblins how to make weapons, clothes, jewelry, and houses. While Rimuru was gone, goblins from other villages heard about him and joined his village, expanding it from 100 to 500 goblins. Using his great sage skill, Rimuru finds out that orcs, lizardmen, and ogres are currently competing over dominance in the Great Forest of Jura. In order to protect the goblins from those powerful monsters, Rimuru accepted them and gave all names. Because Rimuru forgot him in Dworgen, Gobta learned how to summon a Tempest Wolf and rode it back to the village in order to escape from the dungeon. Rigurd was promoted from Goblin Lord to Goblin King, since he became the leader of the village elders who recently joined them. In the present, Rigurd, as the captain of the village's security, reports that he saw suspicious human scouts in the forest. In the forest, Shizu and the three adventurers are running away from giant ants. Suddenly, Shizu takes out her sword and envelops it in flames. With swordsmanship and fire spells, she quickly and skillfully kills all the ants. However, one of the ants gets back up, but Shizu is too exhausted to attack. Before the ant manages to attack her, a black lightning bolt hits the ant and kills it, making Shizu's mask fly away. Having killed the ant, Rimuru shows himself to Shizu and the adventurers and realizes Shizu is the person he saw in the elf's crystal ball. Taking Shizu and the others to the village, Rimuru and the goblins give them something to eat. After they finish the meal, they all formally introduce themselves to each other. The adventurers are impressed that Rimuru is the master of the village and thank him for rescuing them and giving them something to eat. While Shizu is eating, seeing her sitting style, Rimuru realizes she is probably from Japan. The adventurers' leader, Kavel, explains to Rimuru that they were sent by the guild to investigate the forest, and Rimuru lets them all stay in the village overnight. At sunset, Rimuru finds Shizu alone on a cliff overlooking the forest. Shizu realizes Rimuru is from Japan from the way he is talking and admits she is also from Japan. She tells Rimuru about her past. A long time ago, her hometown was in the middle of a war, and she was running away with her mother. Shortly after, some burning debris fell on her mother and killed her. Someone summoned Shizu to this world. In order to cheer her up, Rimuru uses a skill called Thought Communication to show Shizu's memories of living in Japan and how much the country changed for the better since she left. He tells her he wants to make this world one where everyone can live in peace, and she supports him. After Rimuru leaves, Shizu remembers the time when she was summoned. She woke up in a magic circle on the floor with an emotionless blonde man observing her. At first, he thinks she is useless, but then decides to give her body to a powerful fire spirit called Ifrit. Suddenly, a parrot monster appears in the room and announces that he will defeat the blonde man, who is actually a demon lord called Leon. In order to test Shizu, Leon tells Ifrit to take over her body. Using an incredibly powerful fire spell, Ifrit eradicates Konnik completely. Satisfied with Shizu's results, Leon decides to take her in. Sometime later, Shizu sees her friend Perino in the forest together with a fox pup she rescued. When Perino takes the fox with her to Leon's castle, the fox starts growling at Leon as soon as it sees him. Thinking the fox is a threat, Ifrit takes control of Shizu, making her eyes turn red. Instantly, he burns both Perino and Pizu until nothing is left of them. Regaining control of herself, Shizu realizes what happened and starts crying in despair. In the present day, Shizu wakes up from a nightmare. Suddenly, her eyes turn red, but she manages to suppress Ifrit's influence. Later that day, Shizu tells Rimuru that she will have to go soon so she doesn't cause any trouble for him. She tells him her goal is finding the man who summoned her and admits that she is actually several decades old. When Shizu rejoins the adventurers, she suddenly starts acting strange and clutches her stomach. She starts screaming in pain, her mask breaks and light starts pouring out of it. In an explosion of fire, she flies into the air. Cable realizes that Shizu is actually the retired legendary hero of their guild known as the Conqueror of Flames. Seeing what is going on, Rimuru tells Rigger to evacuate the villagers. In a vortex of flame, Shizu's eyes turn red and she transforms into Ifrit, who summons 3 flying salamanders that start burning down the foundations of Rimuru's village. The adventurers know they are no match for him, but want to do their best to save Shizu anyway. Rimuru asks Ifrit what he wants, but Ifrit doesn't say anything and just throws a fireball at him. While the adventurers fight one of the salamanders, Rimuru summons Ranga and rides him. While Ranga is evading the salamander's fire blasts, Rimuru uses his Great Sage skill to try and think of ways to beat them. When the Great Sage skill tells him that only magic attacks will work on spirits, Rimuru asks Eren to fire one of her Icicle Lance spells at him. Absorbing the Icicle Lance, Rimuru analyzes it and learns it. Jumping through the air on Ranga, he summons a large number of Icicle Lances to create an attack he calls Icicle Shotgun, which he uses to defeat the 2 salamanders. However, the 3rd salamander approaches the 3 adventurers and self-destructs near them, defeating them. Rimuru tells Ranga to save the adventurers while he takes Ifrit on himself. Ifrit makes clones of himself that descend towards Rimuru. Using his Icicle Shotgun, Rimuru destroys all the clones easily. But Ifrit then makes a huge magic circle and envelops Rimuru in a massive vortex of flame. However, it turns out that the spell doesn't work on Rimuru at all, since he has temperature change resistance that nullifies fire attacks. Realizing he can easily beat Ifrit after all, Rimuru uses his thread magic to restrain him and then absorbs him, separating him from Shizu. Inside of Rimuru, Ifrit is helpless. A voice tells him he is no match for his friend Rimuru and that he will now have to face him. It turns out the voice belongs to Veldora, who starts laughing. The next morning, Shizu wakes up in a bed and thanks Rimuru for freeing her from Ifrit. She decides to tell him her whole life story. She continued serving the Demon Lord until the hero appeared. After a battle between the hero and the Demon Lord abandoned his castle and left Shizu there as a guard. One day, the hero came to the castle. We can see that the hero is a black-haired girl with the same mask Shizu wore when she first met the adventurers. Shizu did her best to fight her, but the hero was so strong she couldn't beat her. After defeating Shizu, the hero asked her who she was and why she was there. Hearing her story, the hero told her everything will be alright and took her in. She gave her her mask and told her it will help her resist Ifrit's magic. From then on, Shizu traveled with the hero, learning more about the world, helping others in fighting. After a while, Shizu became known as the Conqueror of Flame. One day, the hero left her but told her they will meet again one day. Shizu decided to become stronger and spent the following decades helping people who are suffering. However, with time, her control over Ifrit weakened and she got scared of hurting her loved ones again. That is why she decided to retire and become an instructor at a school for otherworlders in the Kingdom of Ingrassia. She was happy there and one of her students even went on to become the Grandmaster, the person who oversees all the guilds in the country. When she started feeling she won't be able to control Ifrit much longer, she decided to go on a journey to find the man who summoned her so she can ask him something. Taking a deep breath, Shizu tells Rimuru she has a request for him. She wants him to eat her just like he ate Ifrit. Since she doesn't like this world, she doesn't want to become absorbed by it and tells Rimuru her last request is to let her rest inside of him. Rimuru thinks about it for a second and accepts. Rimuru asks her what the name of the man who summoned her was and she tells him it's Leon Cromwell, one of the most powerful demon lords. Shizu admits she wanted to ask Leon if he acknowledged that she existed and if the summoned kids she taught could be saved and returned to their world. Rimuru swears to her that he will find Leon and ask him those questions. With her last breath, Shizu thanks him and dies, turning into an older version of herself. Having realized Shizu has died, Rimuru absorbs her. Inside of Rimuru, Shizu reunites with the soul of her dead mother and dies in peace. When Rigard and the adventurers enter Shizu's tent, they see a naked girl inside. When she turns around, they see that she looks like Shizu, but with blue hair. Rimuru explains what happened and tells them that he turned into Shizu after he absorbed her. Since they are going away soon, the 3 adventurers ask Rimuru to turn back into Shizu. When he does that, the adventurers tell him everything they wanted to say to Shizu before she died. Before they leave, Rimuru gives the adventurers new equipment and armor as parting gifts. The adventurers are delighted and they happily go back to their guild. Rimuru and Ranga bury Shizu's body and Rimuru swears he will find Leon Cromwell. In a dry wasteland somewhere, an orc collapses from exhaustion. A strange man with a bird mask approaches him and introduces himself as Gelmid, giving him the name Geld. He tells him he will one day take possession of the great forest of Jura. Back in the village, Rimuru finds out he can use all of Ifrit's skills now, including body double. He immediately tries it out and realizes he is genderless in his human form. He also realizes he can finally taste food again now that he can transform into a human, so decides to eat dinner with the others that night. Rigger returns from a patrol and tells Rimuru that monsters from deep inside the forest have been traveling near their village. Hearing this, Rimuru sends Ranga, Rigger, and the rest of the hunting party to inspect the forest. Later, Rimuru returns to the cave where Veldora has been sealed in order to try out the skills he acquired from absorbing Shizu. Among others, he received a rare skill called Degenerate that can merge different skills together and make new skills. He also finds out that if he wears Shizu's mask, he can conceal his huge magic power and make himself seem like a normal human. Suddenly, Ranga uses his thoughts to contact Rimuru and tell him his party has been attacked. When Rimuru finds his friends in the forest, he sees 6 horned ogres attacking them. Everyone except Ranga and Rigger were put to sleep by one of the attackers' spells. Approaching the ogres, Rimuru apologizes to them in case his friends did something wrong. However, the red-haired ogre recognizes his mask and accuses him of killing their friends, which is why they want to kill him now. Seeing they can't be reasoned with, Rimuru sends Ranga to take on the pink-haired ogre, while Rimuru fights the other ones. He first paralyzes the largest of the ogres with a spell, then restrains another one with his steel threads. He smashes the blue-haired ogre's sword with his body armor skill and knocks him out. While Rimuru tries talking to the red-haired ogre again, the old ogre cuts his arm off, even though he had his body armor skill equipped. However, Rimuru simply reabsorbs his arm and regenerates it, surprising the ogres. Rimuru decides to get serious and takes off his mask, unleashing his magic. He conjures a huge vortex of black flame and destroys a large rock, demonstrating his overwhelming power. The red-haired ogre, who turns out to be the leader of the ogre clan, realizes Rimuru is stronger than him but doesn't let himself get intimidated. Suddenly, the pink-haired ogre stands between Rimuru and the others and tells the red-haired ogre that Rimuru isn't their enemy. The person they are looking for is used underhanded to make orcs attack their village, while Rimuru is powerful enough that he could kill them on his own. Hearing this, the red-haired ogre is willing to listen to what Rimuru has to say. Rimuru introduces himself, revealing that he is actually a slime and that his mask is a keepsake of his deceased friend. The red-haired ogre takes a better look at the mask and realizes it's different than the mask their enemy wore. He gets down on one knee and asks Rimuru and the others to accept his apology. Having made peace, Rimuru takes the ogres to his village. That night, Rimuru eats with everyone and enjoys the taste of good food for the first time since he was reincarnated. Talking to Kaijin and Rimuru, the ogres tell them that orcs attacked their village, killing everyone except the 6 of them. Even though orcs are supposed to be weaker than ogres, these orcs came in huge numbers and were equipped with human weapons and armor. The red-haired ogre saw a masked person working with them and suspects that the orcs have started working with one of the demon lords. Since the orcs might become a threat to Rimuru's village too, Rimuru asks the ogres to become his subordinates and Yumeteo beat their common enemy. The next morning, the red-haired ogre decides to accept Rimuru's offer, on the condition that the contract lasts until they beat the orcs. Gathering all 6 of the ogres, he starts giving them names. However, as soon as he names them, he loses consciousness. Rimuru wakes up with the ogres gathered around him and sees that they now look younger and more intelligent than before. He named third-haired ogre Benimaru, the pink-haired ogre became Shuna, the purple-haired ogre became Cheyenne. The old ogre became Hakaru, the gloomy blue-haired ogre became Sodi, and the largest ogre became Kurobe. Because the ogres are so powerful, Rimuru spent all his magic after naming only 6 of them. In the middle of the great forest of Jura, there are marshlands where the lizardmen live. That night, the lizardmen report to their chieftain that the gigantic orc army has been sighted near their territory. The chieftain thinks that such a huge number of orcs could only be controlled by the Orc Lord, a unique legendary monster. Since the orc army is twice as big as the lizardmen's army, the chieftain sends his son, a flamboyant lizardman called Gabiru, to travel to different goblin villages and try to recruit them as reinforcements. In Rimuru's village, Benimaru also tells Rimuru about the possibility of an orc lord existing. Before the orcs attacked, a strange man visited the ogre village. He wanted to name all the ogres, but they drove him away because they found him untrustworthy. As he was leaving, he cursed them all. Benimaru says the man's name was Gelmud, and Rimuru realizes that Rigger told him his brother was given a name by someone called Gelmud. Meanwhile, Gabiru's party is traveling to different goblin villages and convincing their inhabitants to join their cause. On the way, Gabiru's subordinates are constantly praising him, leading him to believe that could take over as the next Lizardmen's chieftain soon. A few days later, Rimuru starts giving Theagr's different jobs. While Shuna is making clothes for the villagers, Sham declared herself Rimuru's personal secretary and bodyguard. However, Shuna wants to take care of Rimuru too, so they start a rivalry. Rigurd appears and tells Rimuru that a group of lizardmen has arrived in the village. Gabiru makes a dramatic entrance and tells everyone he will make them serve under him so they can defeat the orcs together, but Rimuru and the others aren't impressed. Rimuru wants to unite with the lizardmen against the orcs, but he doesn't trust Gabiru. Gabiru thinks Rimuru is deceiving the goblins, the wolves, and the others and tells them he will defeat him for them. Because Gabiru insulted his master, Ranga gets angry and prepares to attack. When Gobda suddenly appears. Getting an idea, Ranga tells Gabiru he will consider his offer to join him if he can defeat Gobda, and Gabiru arrogantly agrees. Gobda throws his spear towards Gabiru to distract him, jumps out from his shadow using the shadow movement skill and kicks him in the neck, making him lose consciousness. Turning to the lizardmen, Rimuru tells them he will consider helping them fight the orcs, but they won't serve them. He tells them to take Gabiru with them and leave for the day. Later, Soei returns from his patrol and tells everyone that the orc army is advancing towards the lizardmen's territory. While they are discussing what to do about the orcs, Soei tells Rimuru that a dryad is looking for him. Suddenly, a dryad teleports into the room and introduces herself as Trini. Since dryads know about everything going on in the forest, Trini reveals that they have noticed that an orc lord appeared. However, the dryad village isn't strong enough to take on the orcs, so Trini is looking for help from Rimuru's village. Benamaru reveals that the Orc Lord has a skill called Starve that allows him and his army to devour everything in their paths and get stronger from it. In return, they all feel an endless hunger. Hearing this, Rimuru realizes the Orc's goal is stealing the forest's monsters' powers by eating them instead of ruling over them. Trini also says that the Dryads have confirmed that a powerful subordinate of the Demon Lord is behind the Orc Lord's appearance. Thinking Rimuru is strong enough to defeat the Orc Lord, Trini once again asks Rimuru to help her defeat him. Thinking about it and consulting the Great Sage skill, Rimuru accepts her proposal and all his subordinates agree to help him. Since Gabiru is untrustworthy, Soei offers to visit the Lizardmen's chieftain directly and ask him to fight with them, so Rimuru sends him there. Somewhere else, Gabiru finally wakes up. He realizes a strange man with a clown mask is with the other lizardmen. His name is Laplace, and he has come as a servant of Lord Gelmud, who was the one who gave Gabiru his name. He convinces Gabiru that his father is too weak to fight the Orc Lord and tells him he should go back into the marshlands and take over as the new chieftain. Meanwhile, the massive Orc army is marching towards the Lizardmen's territory. Before they get there, Soei arrives. He confirms the chieftain's theory about the Orc Lord and proposes that Rimuru's village joins forces with the Lizardmen. When the chieftain hears the Dryads have personally asked Rimuru to help them, he accepts the proposal, realizing that Rimuru could be a strong ally to him. However, he first wants to meet Rimuru personally, and he makes a deal with Soei to meet up in 7 days. After Soei leaves, the chieftain gathers his army and tells them not to attack the orcs until reinforcements arrive from Rimuru's village. He doesn't want his soldiers to die for no reason and make the orc army more powerful. 4 days later, the orcs start invading and the lizardmen defend their country, but don't attack the orcs straightforwardly. Suddenly, Gabiru appears and visits his father. He doesn't agree with waiting for Rimuru's reinforcements and thinks that his father doesn't know what he is doing. Thinking he can lead the lizardmen better than him, he forcefully takes over as the new lizardman chieftain. When he takes the chieftain's weapon, the Vortex Spear, he feels its power flowing into him. Meanwhile, Gabiru's subordinates have gathered every lizardman who didn't agree with the previous chieftain, and Gabiru announces to them that they are going to war with the orcs immediately. Meanwhile, the orcs continue advancing and the lizardmen ambush them. The powerful lizardman soldiers manage to kill some of the orcs, but then the other orcs start eating their corpses and grow stronger. While his father knows the true terror of the Orc Lord, Gabiru has no idea what he is facing. Thank you so much for staying until the end. Make sure to subscribe and leave a like if you want to see part 2. Bye.
Subscribe for more videos like this, turn on notifications, and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for watching.